Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Anne. Very helpful and wonderful that we're all here on this webinar. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedules to be here and be present with us. We're presenting the Legacy Labyrinth Project, and it's my privilege to introduce Chris Katzenmeyer. Some of you may have perhaps already met Chris and her husband Larry, who his nickname is Katz, in Chartres, because she's worked with us there as well. And she's the project director of the Legacy Labyrinth. Chris is a Veriditas certified facilitator. She's also a board member. And she's founded a nonprofit for older adult wellness in the Denver area, which is a very successful and highly respected nonprofit. So, Chris, I'm delighted that we're doing this webinar today. Welcome.
Hi, Laura. Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, great. Well, we have a lot ahead of us here, so let's dive in. The Legacy Labyrinth Project, please, let's bring people on board about what it is, because it's a fairly new idea. It's a big vision. And it's something that will connect us all together.
Yes, it is a big vision, and as you can see on the screen right now, this is a beautiful picture from Anne, who actually constructed this picture after I was sharing a dream that I had. And the dream, when I share the dream, I'm always very happy to hear that other people have had a similar dream or the same dream. And the dream is very, very simple, that I was seeing a flat map of the globe, and there were labyrinths all over in every continent, and that there was light coming from above, going through the center of the labyrinth and into the earth. And the clear message was, you know, the earth needs more light, and it's the center of the labyrinth is the way. And I can't say that the dream was the total inspiration for the project, but there were several inspirations, and being on the board at Veriditas was certainly part of it. The board, as some people know, is a very hard-working board, and we work hard to not only bring the message of the labyrinth to the international community, but to really try to be stewards of how can we bring the labyrinth experience to certain kinds of projects and certain kinds of populations and with certain kinds of concepts. So the vision is really of a global web for international healing, and that really kind of sums up, for me anyway, the project's vision. We had the Veriditas auction a few years ago, and we decided to kind of launch this particular project on the Veriditas auction. And I got a call from our auction volunteer who said, "Would you please take this call, because I don't know that I can answer the question." And I said, "Sure, what is it?" And she said, "Well, Argentina is calling, and they want to bid on the project." Well, I hadn't quite in my mind yet. I didn't know how international it really was going to be, but there we were.
Talk about jumping off the deep end, Chris, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's where it started. And this is the next slide really kind of sums up what it is. The Legacy Labyrinth Project builds labyrinths for families or communities that want to leave a legacy for a loved one, or offer a special place for a community to heal from traumas such as Columbine, Sandy Hook, and Oklahoma City. Its purpose is for healing individuals and or communities, and really holds the belief that that higher power connects us and connects us all and is within us all.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's interesting to see the word Columbine here. You had some experience with that, right? With building a labyrinth for that?
Not so much building a labyrinth for it, Lauren, but yeah, lots of experience. I was on the Columbine Memorial Committee. So I was on a committee because Columbine is about 5 miles from my house, and just very quickly was on a committee to decide what the memorial should look like or could look like, and it took several years, many meetings, and what happened was this kind of static thing was built, and I go to it now, and I still have the same feeling as I did after it was built. It's there's no movement there. There's all you do is you stand and you look and you want to get out of there. And
Uh-huh.
so part of the vision was, if we're going to do global healing in areas or communities, let's have something that might be interactive, that might be, places that we can move and think and pray and do those
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things. So,
Mm-hmm.
so it,
Mm-hmm.
it definitely had its purpose for me. I just
Uh,
didn't know what it was.
okay, well, and then it's interesting, isn't it? The experiences, even if they're not nourishing and they tend to be more negative, they do feed vision. We learn what we don't want as well as what we do want and need.
Well said. Well said. Thank you.
Mhm.
And I think a part of that goes into this project too. Of the vision is a primary feature of the project is to link all these labyrinths together, all the legacy labyrinths. And we have been doing that since the project began, and these are some of the ways. I'll just put them all out there and talk briefly about them. But um, to link all the labyrinths really works with the word and the concept of intention. And every owner, sponsor of these legacy labyrinths have had a very purposeful intention of why they wanted to have them built. Um,
Mhm.
so we take that purpose and that intention, and through the dedication that's done with Lauren, um, we Lauren sets that intention in the dedication moving forward. And then we take elements from each of the labyrinths. So from Argentina, we have some rocks that we brought back with us. From Florida, we have some sand. From Ohio, we have the material that makes up the labyrinth. And so we take the materials and that when each labyrinth is built, we bury in or we put in the area of the labyrinth these materials and kind of, I won't say baptize, but we bless these labyrinths with these materials that came from the labyrinth before. There's also a stone that's being passed around from each sponsor of the labyrinth that they hold the stone until the next legacy labyrinth is built. We're working on rituals for for each legacy labyrinth that continues to work to connect them all. And then I want to talk about the global healing response. And I know that many people on the call or on the webinar today know about the global healing response, but if you don't, it's a wonderful project done by Ellen, who is on the Veriditas Council, um, that responds, who sends out to all of people who want to participate and have labyrinths, a prayer and a ceremony and a ritual that can be done on the labyrinth if there is a global catastrophe. So I really encourage people to look more into, even if you don't have a legacy labyrinth, to look into this project because it's quite wonderful.
Well, and
And we're working. I'm sorry?
yeah, Chris, yeah, because it's such an amazing curriculum. Ellen Mutes sends this out quarterly, and anyone who's listening as a facilitator or anyone facilitating labyrinths, it's a wonderful curriculum. They choose a theme every year, then they break that theme down into quarterly themes and offer a curriculum to support that theme. So, and that's mailed out, by the way, through emails, and it's also on the listserv. So it's really a wonderful program, and I'm delighted, Chris, to see this linked with the Legacy Labyrinth.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for that explanation for sure. Um, Signage at each legacy labyrinth, there is and will be signs that explain what the Legacy Labyrinth Project is. And then there's advertisement and explanation on the Veriditas website that's currently under development on each one of the legacy labyrinths and what their story is. So that's kind of how we work with the intentions. This next part is, what have been some of the intentions of the legacy labyrinths? And Lauren, this one is the intention from Legacy Labyrinth #2 from Leah Hudson and her husband Samuel in Jacksonville Beach. And it says when they come to walk the Legacy Labyrinth, they are walking in the universal truth we all share. We know through intentionality, people who walk our labyrinth will also be walking all the other legacy labyrinths around the world. Our peaceful intentions will be felt and shared.
Mm-hmm. Very important, right. Chris, I like that you're emphasizing intention on with the legacy labyrinths. And often, intentionality is really key, to really be focused on intention. To me, intention is sort of an organizing principle. I don't know how you'd describe it, Chris, but intention allows you to focus. Then you have a focus, and so you know not only why you're walking it, but what you're looking for, what you're seeking, or what you're going to focus your attention on. Is that how that works for you? And
yes, I think that's well said. Thank you. I think each one of the sponsors of the Legacy Labyrinths have had their very own intention, and then there's the intention of all of these linking together in a global web of intention for peace and healing. So, it's kind of double intention actually. Mm-hmm. And so this next one is Kristen and Enrique Dura, who actually had the first Legacy Labyrinth in Mafalda, and their intention was very different than, say, Jacksonville Beach. She says, we knew that a labyrinth dedicated to healing would be welcome in Mafalda to intentionally open up new energy from the harsh past of Hitler's army who lived in Mafalda after World War II. We also knew that it had to be in the middle of town so the entire community could walk together. Mm-hmm. And I know Kristen is on the webinar today, and maybe if we have time at the very end, Lauren, we could hear some more of that intention.
Okay, that sounds great.
So moving on, just a little bit more about intention, which again is the primary focus of the project. And I found these quotes, and I thought they were just perfect examples of what we're trying to say here. First one is, it is the intentionality we set when walking the labyrinth that focuses us and connects us to the one, which is exactly what you just said, Lauren. Mm-hmm. And then Karen Armstrong, times of transition are strenuous. They are an opportunity to purge, rethink priorities, grieve, and be intentional about new ways of being. We can make and manifest a new normal any way we want. I love that one. I love it. And it explains this project a lot.
I do too. I really do. Just a reminder that Karen Armstrong is the author of really many books, but the Holy Wars, the Battle for God, the Great Transformation. So she's really a scholar and a historian that really writes in the religious area. So it's interesting to see her saying and how important to grieve and be intentional about new ways of being. I think that really speaks to a lot of us, because any transition brings up everything, including the feeling of loss and grief, as well as the newness. It makes us ready. Grief makes us ready for new things. So that's great. Really a wonderful quote. Yeah. Good to see George Leonard here too. I knew George Leonard from Esalen a little bit. He's an author as well. He's really someone in evolutionary thinking, transformational thinking as well. So
awesome. Well, I used his quote at the end because I think it's very powerful. I mean, he uses the word powerful, but I think it's very impacting. Ultimately, human intentionality is the most powerful evolutionary force on the planet. So, so if we're doing a global connecting and we are intending global peace and healing, intention is and has to be the primary focus.
Well, and then it's the most powerful evolutionary force. It's
Mm-hmm.
fascinating what we long for in our hearts and in our minds, what we long for together in community, that is a strong evolutionary force. I think it's wonderful to be reminded of that.
Great. Thank you. Well, and this next slide is, there she is. We all know who she is.
Mm-hmm.
But I love this, and I love this quote. If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. Um, wow. Every time I see that quote, for me, it just brings up again the linking and the strengthens the connection piece that we're talking about in this project. That if
Mm-hmm.
we're walking a labyrinth in Argentina and we have the intention that they're all linked, we're also walking for people in Florida and Ohio and anywhere else there's a legacy labyrinth. So um, I love this quote.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Talk about
And
a,
then of course,
a stalwart servant for sure. Yes,
yes,
but
yeah.
for sure. Mm-hmm.
And then our friend Wayne, our intention creates our reality. I mean, there you go. It can't get more real than that. So if we are intending peace and healing, if we're intending to work with our grief, if we're intending anything, and we're linked together, then we're intending it for us all.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to bring that point forward as strong as I could, because that really is the underlying point of this whole project.
And
And
the intention is really to connect people and bring people together in their communities and connect people because we are all one. And
yes,
that's what we're emphasizing with the Legacy Labyrinth.
yes, yes, indeed we are. And here we go. So another purpose and something that we're just seeing emerge over and over again from the labyrinths that have already been built is this sense of community. And so I've just listed here some of the ways that I've been seeing that community and the levels of community that can be found in this project. So obviously the first one is very obvious, the community where the Legacy Labyrinth will live. Second, the community that is formed when volunteers work together on the building. Community formed by people walking and using the labyrinth. And then the larger global community. The story, the story that I think I love the most about community that's formed when volunteers work together is the Argentina one, where
Mm-hmm.
we're all mucking around in the mud, putting stones down, and there was a definite community formed that day. I mean, we all knew each other prior to that, but the whole evolution of a week of building a labyrinth together is something that doesn't that stays in the hearts and minds of everyone who's doing it.
Boy,
And
that's for sure. We'll say a little more when we show a picture of it because I think it is worth 1,000 words for sure.
yeah, yeah. Well, I wanted to say just one other little quick thing about community. That I don't know if people read the Shambhala Sun. It's a Buddhist magazine, and they had an article recently that said that there may not be another Dalai Lama as a person, but it may be a community. That the Dalai
Uh-huh.
Lama may be a community, and I wanted just to bring that up because it made me very excited, and this whole emergence of community that we're seeing from this project underscores for me the need the need
Mm-hmm.
of community in every way. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
And community is a challenge because we really need to learn and relearn how to create communities as we go. And so really putting the Legacy Labyrinth and this intention around the Legacy Labyrinth, we're sort of wading in. I want our listeners to know that this is a new project. We're moving into it kind of experimentally and to get the feedback from what happens, since we have some wonderful people who connected Legacy Labyrinths and are sponsoring them, and we're all learning together on this for sure.
yes, yes, and I totally agree with you, Lauren. And I think what has been totally happening is this emergence, again, I'll repeat, of community. So it's our job just to keep paying attention to how that works, how that's working, and what we need to do to support it, to continue to support it.
I really like this slide, Chris, because it's true. We don't heal in isolation, but in community. The studies that are coming out, you know this working with older adults, the studies that are coming out is that people who are alone, the people who don't have the friendships built or community that's caring for them, I mean, you wind up in depression, isolation, and have tougher statistics in terms of their longevity. You can probably speak to this more than I can, but certainly that is so true. We don't heal in isolation.
Right. Well said. And, you know, the Legacy Labyrinths, we were speaking to some folks who were thinking about Legacy Labyrinth, and their intention was to make sure that it was wheelchair accessible because their community were older adults, and they wanted to obviously bring them to the Labyrinth and continue that community. But I just can't emphasize any stronger. I would like to, but I don't know if I can. But that we are seeing community, that how important community is, and that this whole project has been starting new communities. You know, the sponsors of the Legacy Labyrinth, you know, are on an advisory board now. That's another community. So just want to bring that to everyone's attention, that if you walk labyrinths, if you have a labyrinth, you know, pay attention to how it's being used in your community. The Legacy Labyrinth Project wants to connect the global community, so there's that too.
Yeah, and when you approach your labyrinth, the labyrinth you're using and perhaps presenting with, you know, what is the intention? What is your intention? What's the intention of why the labyrinth is there in the first place? That intention sense is a very important kind of rudder to all of this.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, moving on, where are they? Where are these Legacy Labyrinths? Well, we talked about the first one is in La Falda, Argentina. The second one is in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. The third one actually just was dedicated recently in Delaware, Ohio, at Ohio Wesleyan University. And then there's the Ions Retreat Center in Petaluma, the Deer Heart Labyrinth, which we'll be talking a little bit more about that one. And then in Chartres, France, at the Maison Saint-Yves. And I want to show you some pictures. This is La Falda, and there's a lot of stories to tell.
There sure are.
And I look at some of these folks, and you know, 10 stories come to mind. But we all have stories about our labyrinths. But very, very briefly, and again, if we have time at the end, I know Kristen is on to share some more stories. But this is in the middle of La Falda, in the middle park, located in La Falda, Argentina. And as all of you that have ever built a labyrinth, you know, it's very important where you place the labyrinth. And so we spent a lot of time with the mayor of La Falda, who was donating land to us to build. We went in many, many areas to find the right place. And the right place was definitely the middle of town. And what you can't see here are teenagers that hang out. There's a lot of different populations that watched us build this on the outskirts. And what you also don't see here are there are many, many, many dogs in La Falda who are a community all unto themselves. The dogs of La Falda have their own story for sure. The stones here are actually a part of a street that was flooded in La Falda, and when we asked the city for building materials, they scooped up these stones and brought them over to the location, and then we put them together. We put them together.
There were slabs of highway that we had a sledgehammer apart. It was really hard work. So, just to add to this, The board went at their own expense. A lot of the Veriditas board went to launch this project, and it certainly did create community, not only among the folks who did this, but also in the community. We had about 200 people, maybe even more, 250 for the dedication. Partly because people took pity on a bunch of older Americans. It rained and everything was muddy, and they took pity on us, climbing around in the mud on our knees, putting stones in. So
Yes, really. And I know Kristen and Vicky would share too that this labyrinth does not belong to them. It doesn't belong to, and it is there now. The city takes care of it, and there is a labyrinth commissioner that takes care of it. But it is there now, and it belongs to the people. And just very briefly, the intention that we saw a little earlier in the slides here, the people that were fleeing the Nazis during World War II, a lot of them came to La Falda, and then after the war, a lot of the SS officers also fled Germany and located in La Falda, which created, as you can imagine, some pretty intense energy. That energy is still there, and a lot of second and third generation people feel it, others feel it, and so the intention at the very beginning of this particular labyrinth was to really help change that energy in this community.
it really has, truly has. So, well, good, Chris. We have a next photo.
Yeah, we're going to Jacksonville Beach, which is a very different looking labyrinth from the first one. This is cement and painted cement, and you can't see it very well in this picture, but the color is this beautiful, beautiful beach blue, and this labyrinth is a couple of blocks off the coast there in Jacksonville Beach. The intention here, the name of this labyrinth is the Omnisara Labyrinth, and the intention was to have an interfaith tool placed here. And there are many denominations of churches that you can't see in the photo surrounding this particular location. So it really is an interfaith labyrinth with the intention of linking to all the other legacy labyrinths and bringing peace and healing and community to this area.
And it's at a healing center, which is on private property, with many people in the Hudson family that do chiropractic and other things, alternative healing methods. So it's really a wonderful placement for it in Jacksonville Beach.
Yes, I would agree. I know the Mayo Clinic is not too far from here either, and there was intention of bringing patients from the Mayo Clinic in wheelchairs, and that's why they chose this particular flat surface as their labyrinth too. So the next one is Delaware, Ohio, just dedicated like 2 weeks ago, right, Lauren? Wasn't it 2 weeks?
Even less, I think. So.
Oh, less. Yeah, maybe a week ago.
Right.
Yes, we were both there. I think we're still having a little jet lag, but. I know Kathy Rhinesmith is also on the webinar, and if we have time at the end, we'd like her to talk a little bit about her intention for this labyrinth. But you can see it's a beautiful paver labyrinth in this gorgeous setting on the campus of Ohio Wesleyan University. The intention is to leave a legacy of Kathy Rhinesmith as a person who has major influence at this particular campus, as a student, as a board president, as a major contributor to many wonderful things happening on this campus. And her family bought this for her in her honor, her husband and her sons. And so we had Marty Kermeen, who's a master builder, paver builder, be the builder on this, and it just turned out very beautiful. It is now being turned over to the chaplain of OWU, John Powers, whose intention is to use this as an interfaith classroom. and reaching the multitudes in many religions that are attending OWU right now. So, anything else, Lauren, you want to say about this?
Well, it's really a wonderful use. It's really a wonderful focus, isn't it, and intention, because there's so many students that come to Ohio Wesleyan that come from different traditions. And also that they have a program in other countries with students.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
Cuba, there's a group going to Cuba, so the possibilities to open this up and have other labyrinths are there as well. So.
Yeah. Yes.
I loved it, like so many people. I love the placement of it. It's surrounded by trees, but they didn't have to remove any trees to put this in. And of course, Marty Kermeen's labyrinths are just beautiful, and you're seeing a prime example of his work. So.
And if you look right in the middle of the picture, where I think my cursor, hopefully you can see it. There's a stone there, and this stone, we call this a touchstone, and what it says, it says, you know, who it is built for, and but that it's also a legacy labyrinth, and that it is connecting to other labyrinths around the globe. One of these type of stones, it may not look exactly like this one, but one of these type of stones will be placed at all the legacy labyrinths that we're mentioning tonight. Some have them now. Like in Argentina, it's not a stone, it's a sign. But moving on to this next labyrinth would be a good example, the Deerheart Labyrinth, which is at IONS, at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, Petaluma. This is the home and office of Veriditas. And this beautiful labyrinth will also have a touchstone at the towards the mouth of the upper entrance of the labyrinth that designates it as a legacy labyrinth as well. And then the Maison St. Yves in Chartres, which is this beautiful labyrinth built by the Veriditas community, and it will also have a touchstone naming it as a legacy labyrinth.
This labyrinth was a result of the class that Jeff Sayward taught there. It was called Making a Chartres Labyrinth in Chartres. And this is in the back of the Maison St. Yves, this is about 60 seconds. For those of you who haven't been with us to Chartres at this point, it's about a 60-second walk, a minute and a half maybe walk from the cathedral. So this is where most of our participants stay, is at the St. Yves, Maison St. Yves. So this was hard work too. This is another piece of lifting stones. We didn't have to whack the stones in the shape, but each of these stones weigh about 9 to 13 pounds. So it was really, again, filled with lots of memories for sure. So,
did you build community, Lauren?
Yeah, we did build community. We just had a class of 19 people, and boy, yes, sir, you're right. They're connected. They really are connected. Yeah.
Awesome. Yes. So this next slide is a little bit more on the organization of this project. How is this project organized at Veriditas? We have different roles. We have different people. And different projects and partnerships. So I wanted the audience to see the names, to see the the roles that we're playing. And one of the things that have emerged, again, and it's about community, is that this Veriditas community is so rich with expertise and wisdom and depth of everything imaginable, I think. And you're seeing some of the names here. We have Robert Ferre on our team. We have John Ritter, Marty Kameen, of course, Lauren, Ellen, the Veriditas Council. Our executive director is very involved in this project, as are some past board members and the Legacy Labyrinth owners and sponsors. So this team is really, I just can't say enough good things about it. They're always available. They have wonderful free consultations to ideas, and they have certainly taught me a lot. And they've been so readily available to come right up and offer opinions and help. And
Well,
and
that's one of the
everything. So
things Chris, I really like about the Legacy Labyrinth is what it does is it pulls together all the resources. A lot of people
yes,
felt very lost. They wanted a labyrinth. They didn't know where to begin. They didn't have the knowledge about, okay, if I place a labyrinth here, or what do I do? How do I do this? So through you, you're really the hub of this. Many of these, all this whole team. If you look at all the names on here, you're the hub to pull together the expertise and the needs of the site of where it's going to be placed. So it really expedites and takes a lot off people's plates who are struggling to put a labyrinth in. So which really is a wonderful service as well.
thank you. It's pure joy, I'll tell you, and, and a lot of hard work too. But it's pure joy. It's something that just came up, needs to happen. So and
Well, thank you for stepping up to do it, for sure. So
sure, sure. And since we started, we have models. Actually, if I can get it to come up. There we go. Um, these are 4 models that we've used, and 4 models that we feel very comfortable in using in future legacy labyrinths. We also have. There we go. This is kind of, I don't know if you call it the package or what, but these are all the things that when you purchase, if anyone purchases a legacy labyrinth, these are the things that come with it. So you pick a model, and then these are things that you don't have to have these things, but we're offering all these things in the labyrinth building itself. So
it's
I don't
great.
think there's anything new on here I haven't talked about yet, but
Yeah, it's a good example. The Ions Labyrinth. I'm at the Ions office right now up in Petaluma doing this webinar, and
uh-huh.
that's the crushed granite with the stone, which has been very effective. It's a lovely labyrinth. Low end, doesn't have to be. It's not expensive, but what it is effective. It's really lovely. So I
Right,
wonder whose
right.
feet those are, Chris.
I don't know, Lori, but I love this picture.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I really don't know who they are, but I thought it was a great picture to ask the question, where do we go next?
Uh-huh.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the answer, there's several answers and probably more questions than answers, but um, we need to get the global healing response in all of our legacy labyrinths, and we need to do some of that touchstone work that I was talking about, getting those touchstones on those other legacy labyrinths. And I wanted to use this time briefly, if we can, Lauren, about
Yeah.
talking about people and places, and short stories about where are the next legacy labyrinths. Um,
We have time, Chris. I mean, if we can, Anne, if you can bring in Kristen first, maybe, and then Kathy second. We have time, and then we still, if they're brief, then we have time for questions as well at the end of this. So,
okay, great. Well, we have been talking to Erie, Colorado, and they have committed to building a legacy labyrinth. And very briefly, their intention is to bring their community together. It's a small, very, very, very small town. It's a bedroom community to Boulder, Colorado. But the small town part of it is a coal mining town, and there's second and third generation coal mining families that live there. And then there's a lot of agricultural land around there that is being developed into very, very large homes. And the two factions are, there's some tension, and there's some other kinds of things. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to build a labyrinth in one of their town parks, again in the middle of town, much like La Falda, and they want to educate as much as possible and as long as possible their community and what is a labyrinth. So they can start inviting people into labyrinth walks that may not be, they may be from the different communities, and that's what they're hoping. It's also a park that will have other kinds of venues, like they'll have an amphitheater, a stage, a small water feature, which also brings people together, different factions. So it will be a kind of an art installation and a community cohesion.
I think that's one of the things that isn't acknowledged too much, is that the power of doing something together without words. And the Labyrinth so offers that so beautifully. But that's the power of it. That will bring that community hopefully together more so, for sure. So
I love that. Yes, without words. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, words are where we get in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. And very briefly, we're talking to a wonderful couple from Japan, and if I can say the name right, it's Riku Zen Takata, Japan, which was hit very, very hard by the tsunami and the earthquake, both. And a lot of people have fled this small town. It was a town known for its pine trees and its forests, and all of that is gone. All the forest is gone. And out of 20,000 remaining people, 5,000 of the people are over 75. So it has its challenges. They're kind of through the survival and the shock of everything, and they're starting their rebuilding process. And this couple, who don't live in the town but live in Japan, very much want to help this community and bring the labyrinth to the community for continued healing. So we're definitely in talks and communication about that. They're actually leaving the States to go back to Japan in a week to work further on this project. So,
well, and Chemo trained as a facilitator at Grace Cathedral a while back. So, and my book had just come out in Japanese, so I gave her all my copies of the book and told her to pass them around, because certainly, I can't use them, I can't read them, so they're really doing a wonderful job promoting. Chris, didn't you say though one of the intentions was that they want people? The labyrinth would be a destination for people to come to that village. The village does not have radiation, but it does have, of course, earthquake and tsunami damage. But they want people to come to help rebuild. Is that right? Did I understand that right?
They do. It's just very, very tricky. They have to do a lot of, pardon the pun, groundwork. But yes, that is their intention. I don't think it's the intention of the town right now. Just culturally, I don't think it is the intention. Okay. But they do. But they need a lot of help. Yes.
For sure, they sure do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, Anne, do you think we could unmute maybe Kristen and Kathy and hear maybe a little bit more about Argentina and Ohio?
Kristen is unmuted. So she
yes,
should be good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed. Uh-huh.
Hello from lovely Texas.
Hi.
Where are you now?
In Texas.
Okay. All right.
I'm in Texas. Well, it's just been awesome to be able to listen to you talk about the Legacy Labyrinth and to also see the beautiful PowerPoint with the pictures. It's very moving for me personally, and especially to see Mercedita, who's not with us any longer, on that labyrinth walk, and know how much it meant to her as she was finishing up her time with her cancer. So, it's the macro and the micro. What I'd like to say is that there's a saying in Spanish that Enrique and I try to live by, and it says, tu vida, mi vida, una vida, which means your life, my life, one life. And for me, I think that it started with Lauren saying, oh my gosh, what can I do? And to bring something for all. And when I first went to La Falda, I realized the community of real descendants of refugees. I mean, they weren't even immigrants. These are people that were coming from Europe, escaping Hitler, as Enrique's father's family was doing, or his mother's family from Spain, and escaping, Franco, and, bad times, people really feeling like they had to leave, and then arriving and trying to coexist in a small town. And a small town with a lot of divisions, a lot of, you know how small towns are. People having judgments or opinions, staying separate from one another. So I think that for Enrique and I, when we took a workshop with Lauren and got to experience the labyrinth and learn about it, we definitely felt that we would like to bring it into the town of La Falda to kind of be a message, talk about intention. Our intention was kind of, we see you, you know, you matter, your story is important, you know, and let's come together in the middle of town and, you know, share and walk and interact. And it really has been, you know, thanks to our commissioners, a place of intention. 4 times a year at the change of the seasons, they do a dedication and a healing. Katrine, who was trained by Lauren, is our facilitator in La Falda, speaks 4 languages. She's from Germany originally. She speaks French, Spanish, and English. And then we have Fernando, who's our bilingual public relations person who works with the municipality to bring more programs for the labyrinth to the town. So it really has been a big blessing, and thanks to the board and Lauren and Chris for all coming down and really building it with their hands. Thank you to Lauren for having that for all mentality about the labyrinth and taking it out of a religious context. You know, I love the labyrinth so much because it is something that is for, you don't have to be a certain age or a certain socioeconomic class. You don't have to have a, you know, particular point of view. It's for each person coming into the experience, and I really love that. So it's a refuge, and I know that that is your intention, to have it be a refuge for people all over the world. It's beautiful to be a part of. Thank you.
Well, thank you
for
being a part of it, for sure. For sure. And Fernando's on this call as well, so I don't know, we're going to be a little short on time, but I just want to acknowledge you, Fernando, for being down there in Argentina at La Falda and really helping with the program down there and putting it together. So it's great. So is Kathy on? Is Kathy on the unmuted, as we say?
Yes, Kathy's unmuted
Hello?
now.
Hey, Kathy.
Can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes, indeed.
It worked. Thank you for the opportunity. Guess what? It was only a week and a day ago that you were in Delaware.
Oh, goodness.
Like 2 weeks. And I just am so grateful, and my heart is still overflowing from that wonderful day of dedication, and Lauren, your wonderful presentation to the campus on the history, mystery, and meaning of labyrinths, because it was very clear to me when this wonderful gift by my family was announced to the campus that we needed that education piece. And so when you said, Lauren, a little while ago, that the labyrinth there is actually a classroom, we know that to be true, because the first picture I got from it after it was finished building this summer was of a yoga class meeting on it. So, and as you heard while you were there, Chris and Lauren and Katz, that it is already being used for a number of purposes, and the chaplain has totally embraced the labyrinth and what it can mean and do for the campus. And I'm just so grateful that it occurred to us as this gift was given that indeed it could be a legacy labyrinth, because it ties in so beautifully with the educational mission of Ohio Wesleyan, which is to educate global citizens. And so the Legacy Labyrinth is truly a classroom. And the other thing I wanted to say was, as we said to each other while we were there, that labyrinth looked like it had always been there. And I really do believe that labyrinths find their place, and it has definitely found its place in Delaware, Ohio. So gratitude again, Chris, to you for the concept of this beautiful idea, and Lauren for your gift to all of us as we have learned from you. So beautifully how to take this and weave it into the spirit of the place in which it's intended to be. Thank you, thank you.
You're very welcome, Kathy. Really.
Thank you. Thank
really
you,
important.
Kathy.
Yeah. Well, let's see if there's any questions. Are there questions there, Anne?
No questions have come in yet, so we'd like to invite you if you have any questions about the Legacy Labyrinth project. This would be a great time to submit them using the questions box.
Good.
And could you talk about the brochure too that people can download if they want?
Okay, so if you look on the control panel section, there should be something called handouts. And if you open that little drop down on the right of your screen there's a link to the Legacy Labyrinth brochure PDF that if you click on that link will download that Legacy Labyrinth brochure onto your computer.
Wonderful. I wondered what that handout was. It's great. It's great. Well, I think my hope is in this webinar that it opens people's vision even broader. I loved, Kathy, the theme of global citizens, that Ohio Wesleyan's educating these young people, and I guess I can say that now from my age, that, in how to be a global citizen. And that's certainly not a term or even a concept that I had when I went to college. And here they are, people from all over. And then the labyrinth is a way of bringing them together. It's really such not only a wonderful vision, but an actuality that's going to be happening and is happening there. And so it was very rewarding to be there, both places, in La Falda, Argentina, to do that dedication there, and as well as Ohio Wesleyan, as well as Omnisara for sure. But so my hope is that it broadens our vision about what's possible. And again, as I mentioned, this project is really getting its feet under it and starting to move forward. We're certainly open to ideas and questions and where this moves next. And I'm very appreciative of the advisory committee and connected to the board and with some board members as well to kind of see where all this is going to unfold. And it's really a privilege to do that. So, and Chris, I'm glad that you're really connected and keeping an eye out on all of this.
Yes, that's the fun part of the job, to watch what's emerging and to keep an eye on where are the areas in our world that need healing the most. There was a conversation when we were at Pakistan and and about Haiti. When we think about areas that need our peaceful intentions and healing intentions, we can continue to walk our labyrinths and send him in those directions. But if we could actually put a labyrinth there, how wonderful that would be, and educate the community on how to use it and how to use it with each other. So that's our vision, and any help, as you say, Lauren, is most welcome, always most welcome.
Well, that's great, and it's so important to be open to, what other people are picking up with this vision. One of the things we didn't mention was that here we were sitting on the Ohio Wesleyan campus with some facilitators in the Ohio area who came down to join us just for kind of a walk together. This was the day before the dedication, and that meeting, the Japanese couple who happens to do media in Japan, and so they had their cameras ready, and at the graciousness of the university, they allowed us to film the dedication. But all of that was by synchronicity. All of
Absolutely.
that was by synchronicity.
Absolutely. which again, that's the fun part of this job, because it's really it's everywhere, and that's how it's been moving forward. So yeah, I can't wait to see how that develops as well.
Really quite an amazing thing to have happen, for sure. So, so Anne, are we with questions, or?
No, there don't seem to be any questions.
Can we unmute Fernando if he's still there and give him a hoot and a holler hello?
Yeah, absolutely. Here you go. Fernando, you're about to be unmuted. Are you there?
Hi, Fernando. How
Hi,
are you?
Fernando.
Fernando, you there? I
Oh,
heard someone laughing. Did we lose him? Pretty amazing to think about from Argentina.
well,
Yes,
he did send a message. Hold on.
Okay.
He
he did.
said, I just want to send my love and good vibes to Lauren, Chris, and all members of Veriditas. It is beautiful to hear your voices. A big hug of light, Fernanda from Argentina.
Oh, that's lovely.
Awesome.
Uh,
Yay.
that's really
Yes.
lovely. Really, really lovely. So,
Uh,
yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say I think that's such a heartfelt example of the connections that this project has been starting. Um, Fernando emails us with these wonderful updates, and he does walks. He organizes walks and in Argentina, and that's just